I'm Linda with UCC Master Gardener Program of Riverside, and today I'm at the Eastern Municipal Water District with Alan Freitag, and he is going to take us on a tour of their, what will we call this?
We're calling this our Water-Wise Demonstration Garden.
Yes. And it's just beautiful. We're going to learn a lot, so I'll turn
Thank you. So, well, thanks for coming. This is a great opportunity. I love the Master Gardener program. I took the program back in 2015, learned so much. You know, it's a great program if anybody's interested in learning more about plants, soil, and all that great stuff. Definitely recommend going through the program. So, this is our Water-Wise Demonstration Garden. This garden was actually built in 2007. We did 3 phases, and then 2009 we completed it. And the goal was basically to show people all the different drought-tolerant plants that are available at local nurseries or big box stores that they can get today. So, and that's what we did. We went through and we got an architect out here and we said, look, we want to highlight all the different plants that are available for our customers to go down and get today, so that way they're not ordering stuff online and stuff like that. Now, in 2007, what you see here did not look like this, right? We had 7 acres of turf and ground cover, so we were spending a lot of money on water out here. So our goal, one of the goals was to reduce our outdoor water usage by 75%. Now, a lot of us in the, here at EMWD, we're like, whoa, that's a lot of water savings, right? So 7 acres. Now, it doesn't look like it's 7 acres, but when you start adding up all of the areas outside of our fence line, in our parking lots, all around this facility, 7 acres. And so we had 6 acres of turf. So that was a lot.
Of turf?
Of turf alone. Yeah, that was crazy. It was, and I found some old photos of me out here, and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was just turf everywhere in all of our islands and all through the garden and stuff. And I was like, wow, what a transformation. So when we started the project, like I said, in 2007, that was our goal. The 2 goals, right? Conserve water and to provide plants that a customer can pick up that day at a box store, right? So that was it. Because we get a lot of questions like, why didn't you use all California native? Why didn't you use X, Y, and Z plants? And the goal was so that way customers can get these plants today, right? So that way they don't have to special order and stuff. So we started here in our demonstration garden and Water-Wise Demonstration Garden to show all the different plants, but we also included hardscape, right? So we included trees and stuff like that, like you would use in your garden. And so it starts right here. We used a lot of decomposed granite. Decomposed granite is great for pathways and stuff like that. And it also, when it rains out here, instead of the water just running off out into the street, it actually goes down back into the groundwater where we can then use it at a future date. So that was very important.
Now, I have a question. Is this DG the same kind of DG that I might have on at home on my land?
Yes, so it's exactly the same. The difference with this on this path right through here, this is actually an emergency road for fire in case we had a fire here. So this is really compacted, right? So that way vehicles can drive on it. But yes, this is the exact same DG you would purchase at your local store. And so we also used all different kinds of mulches. So we wanted to showcase cedar mulch. We wanted to showcase the different rocks because a lot of people love rocks and stuff like that. And we also, if you notice, when you look out into the garden, you notice it's not flat, right? So we put little hills in here and stuff like that to give it some, some variation and make it look nice. And all of these trees were planted in 2007. You can see they are incredibly tall. So we always tell customers that please read the tag that comes with the plant, So when you plant a sycamore, right, and it says it's going to get 40 feet, but it's also going to be as wide as, 20 plus feet, to plant it far enough away from your building or from your house so you're not getting a lot of leaves and stuff built up on your roof and clogging up your gutters and stuff. And I'll show you a couple examples of where we actually planted them a little too close.
Now, regarding mulch, here we have a little bit more of a larger rock mulch. Do you get the reflective heat off of these? I mean, they probably heat up, and do they burn your bushes?
So we do get a lot of, here in Southern California, we 100 plus degrees in the summer is pretty normal. These rocks do get pretty hot. Yeah, they do retain the heat for long periods of time. This hedge that we have here, you can see is a little bit stressed due to the summer and stuff like that, but it's called a Japanese privet. And so this will bounce back. We have some over there and stuff like that, and it will actually bloom. They have small little white blooms and stuff like that, so it has some color. But
and let me interrupt you.
Sure.
You probably should mention that we're right in the middle of fall, so we've gone through the summer and we're preparing for winter, because it does make a difference on what our plants look like.
Great point. So, so it's in the springtime, everything's alive and green and beautiful and blooming, and that's when everybody takes all the great photos and stuff. And then now, like you said, the temperatures start to cool off at night, so the plants are starting to basically go dormant, sleeping and stuff like that. So they are looking a little different, so we'll talk a little bit about kind of what we do here in our garden during the fall, just for cleanup and stuff like that, to prepare for the cooler months. I probably remember in 2017, winter 2017-18, when we got snow out here. This was the first time we actually had hail. It's not really snow, but we have some photos of pretty much everything white out here, and we were really worried that we were going to lose most of our plants. But believe it or not, because we picked the correct plants, drought-tolerant plantings and stuff like that, and most of them were sleeping at the time, dormant, we really didn't lose anything. So that was pretty.
Well, plus it didn't stay
No.
frozen when it was on the ground.
No, it stayed only for like 3 or 4 hours, and then it was gone. But still, when it gets down to the 20s, you panic.
Absolutely. You can lose plants very quickly.
Yes, yeah. So, and that brings up to another thing, is reading the tags of the plant, right? So we were always taught that in the Master Gardener program, that those tags are there for a reason. That has a lot of detailed information. A lot of these box stores sell tropical plants, which I'm always very surprised when I go in there and see plants, and I'm like, wait, this isn't going to make it, outside when it hits these cooler weathers and temperatures and stuff. So always read those tags. Yeah.
Do we know what zone you're in?
I think I think we're in zone 9A. Okay. I think that's right. But best place to find that is the Sunset Guide, and you can go online and just type in what is my zone, and then it'll give you the exact zone that you're in, so you can make sure you get the right plant for your area.
You would get your nights, the coldest you get is in the 30s.
Yeah, and we have. Yeah, in here it's the low 30s, but we do have an occasional 20s. So, and that's when a lot of people will go out and cover their citrus trees and stuff like that to make sure they don't lose them. And so not too many, thankfully. We're spoiled here. We have such amazing weather in the winter. My parents, they live in upstate New York, and they just say, you guys just have, basically spring, summer, and then fall, and then that's it. We don't have winter here compared to what they have. So, but yeah, let's mosey on through the garden, and we'll highlight some of the plants that we have and some of the things that we've done. So like I said, this was built back in 2007, and we finished in 2009. We had 3 phases of that. And so in our trees that you see out here were all 24-inch box, right? So we wanted to get a little bit bigger trees and stuff like that. But in 15 years, these trees have taken off, right?
So they would have been about 15 feet?
No, they were less than, most of them were less than 10 feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, and they've taken off. This acacia, shoestring acacia, you can see we have 3 of them here. They've done really well. And where they're located, they're pretty much in full sun most of the day. So they've done well. I was going to talk a little bit too about trees and about, there is no perfect tree, right, regarding mess, right? There's always, if it's blooming, they're going to have a mess and stuff like that. These shoestring acacias drop all these little seed pods all over the place and stuff like that. We knew that to begin with, so instead of continuously trying to get it up, we just go ahead and just leave it and use that as a mulch, and on top of the ground. And so we just work with Mother Nature.
Do you ever get new sprouts?
Occasionally we do. We get them, and we have a gardening crew that comes through, and they're here normally a couple times a week, just maintaining and stuff like that. They do all of our trimming, making sure all the plants, the watering system's working correctly and stuff like that. Yeah. So, but yeah, we do get sprouts. It's kind of funny when you see them popping up here and there. You're like, how did they get all the way over there? It's amazing. So, we wanted to use a plant that was fragrant. So when the wind blew and stuff like that, or you brushed up against it, you have the nice smells and stuff like that. So we used a different type of rosemary here. This is more of a ground cover rosemary. You can see it doesn't get very high, right? So it just kind of lays it flat, kind of fills up the area and stuff like that. There's not a lot of bees out here right now, but these are starting to bloom. They're little flowers. And this afternoon, these will be covered in bees. So it's a great pollinator
and
plant.
Look how pretty those blue flowers are.
They're very pretty. They're so fragrant. Yeah, I love that plant. And it does a great job as a little shrub here. Yeah,
and it is an herb. You can use it in cooking.
Yes, especially with chicken, right?
Yeah.
Love that.
I think I've used it in the salmon when I've baked my salmon.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a rosemary in my backyard, but I don't have this type. I have more of a vertical one, so mine's pretty high. It's about as tall as me now. But I love it. I go out there, trim it, and take it inside and wash it, and now I have fresh rosemary to cook with. So we have the shoe-singer acacias. Now these acacias were actually planted correctly, which was nice. You see how far away from the building it is? So we gave these trees plenty of room, so that way they can grow, provide shade onto our building and stuff like that. And when we get around the corner, I'm going to show you where we didn't give trees enough room, and they're way too close to the building and causing issues.
And what a nice benefit, because you have a whole wall of glass.
Yes.
So you have these acacia trees shading that, so you don't build up heat for inside.
Right, and they do provide a lot of shade. Now, right now, it's not in full, all the leaf, what it would look like in the springtime. In the spring, it's a lot fuller and stuff like that, but yeah, these are great trees.
Were these recently thinned or pruned?
I think about a year or two ago they came through, and you can see where they made some cuts with some smaller branches that were taken off and stuff like that. We try to do tree trimming about every 5 years just to come through, trim some stuff up, but not hack it, you know what I'm saying? We actually have
you mean you don't top your trees?
Nope, we do not top our trees, no. So we have an actual arborist that comes out here and does all of it professionally. So 'cause all of us have seen, the crepe myrtles where they come through and they just whack the top off of them, and you're like, oh my gosh, why are they doing that? Just so they come through and they do some basic trimming. And we have several trees in here, like the Arizona ash, that actually, as a matter of fact, the Arizona ash is right here off to your left. It actually has a really nice canopy. So we don't actually do a lot of trimming on this tree, but we do come in like every 5 years and trim up some of the lower branches and make it a little bit rounder. But for the most part, it's like that year round, which is great.
And it can handle the wind?
It can handle the wind, yeah. So all of our trees, when we planted them, we planted all of our trees and plants using drip. So that way, it's right to the plant, so that we're not broadcast spraying and stuff like that. And we do use recycled water here. I know a lot of people ask that question. Oh, you use recycled water? Yes. So 100% of our watering outside is recycled water, so we take advantage of that product instead of using potable water.
So which recycled water? Is it filtered twice? Or?
That's a great question. So all of our wastewater that is discharged in our system, basically, so when you take a shower, water going down the drain, flushing toilets and stuff, go to one of our 4 water reclamation facilities that are located throughout our service area. We have one in Temecula, we have one in Paris, Moreno Valley, and in the Jimena Jacinto area. 100% of the water that go into those plants is then cleaned and turned into recycled water. That's 100%, right? So that way farmers, landscaping and stuff, we're not using our precious fresh drinking water, we're using this recycled water, and so that way we're not depleting our fresh water. So yeah.
So this wasn't like you were talking about as for drinking water.
Correct.
You had an extra
Yeah.
filtration. So what about your edibles? Can you still use this kind of water on those?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, our farmers out here in Southern California use recycled water to grow everything from strawberries, onions, peppers, potatoes, corn, you name it. They're using recycled water to grow those.
So there's some kind of a natural filtration in our soil when we're planting our corn and our vegetables and stuff, so it's not a yuck issue.
Right. No, that's exactly. So when that water goes through our wastewater plant, and all this information is online. We have some great videos about the whole process of the filtration and everything like that. It meets all of the standards, the state standards for recycled water. Now, and it can be used for agricultural purposes. It's not for drinking, obviously, but we haven't had any issues with using it on crops. We have grapes here, we have pomegranates here, we have citrus and stuff like that, and they all do very well on the recycled water. So, yeah.
Well, that's good to
Great
know.
questions.
I was always curious about that.
Yeah, great questions. Yeah. So I know there's a lot of ick factors, but we have a lot of information out there for our customers to look at regarding what we do and how clean this water is, and it's all up. We have state regulations and stuff like that. It has to be a certain level and stuff. And EMWD actually exceeds. We're way below the state levels, so just to make sure our water is clean, fresh, and usable. So, yeah, great questions. Yeah, I love it. So, our demonstration garden is about an acre, so just this area is about an acre. So remember when I told you it was about 7 acres, just shows you how big our facility is. We're a whole city block out here, right? All the way from Mates Road and almost all the way up to this next road up here. We have holding ponds around us. Those are recycled water holding ponds. In the winter, as you can imagine, when the weather cools down, right, the demand for recycled water goes down also. So instead of discharging that water, we put it in holding ponds, so that way we can use it at a later date.
That's interesting. And like in Temecula, they have a different water district. So are you providing certain...
That's a great question. So you're absolutely right. So Rancho California Water District provides water for the Temecula area. They don't have wastewater, so we handle all of the wastewater for Temecula. So anything that goes down the drain, anything that is flushed or anything like that goes to our wastewater facility.
And you also do that for some other water.
Yes. So when you look at a map, so our service area is 558 square miles, right? So we're big. We're the 6th largest water utility provider in Southern California. So we have a lot of small water agencies that are inside of our service area. For example, like we have Lake Hemet Municipal Water District, which is located in Hemet. The city of Hemet has their own water. City of Paris has their own water district. And so they provide fresh water for their customers, but we provide all the sewer for that area.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. So even though we have this huge area, there are some small water districts in our area. So, yeah. So we'll keep going down here. There's an area that I wanted to show you. So we do have some artificial turf here, and artificial turf has gained in popularity over the years, just as a way for people to have a nice green area, in their front yard or in their backyard. So we have it's not very big, but it's big enough so that way people can come out here, touch it, walk on it, and especially in the summer months to see how hot it gets and stuff like that. So we are now over here with our artificial turf, Linda. So I wanted to show you this area. So we don't have a lot, but we do have an area. Believe it or not, this was installed back in 2007. So this artificial turf has actually done quite well.
And it's even growing.
So,
I didn't know that about
artificial turf grows. So, but we wanted to showcase it because we always get questions, right? We're always getting questions about how hot does it get? How long is this going to last, and all this other stuff. So we put this out here so people can see, and even though you have artificial turf, there is maintenance. Right? There is maintenance on this. You're going to have to come out here. They have these little fluffers tools that you can use to fluff up the artificial turf. You gotta blow stuff off of it. Believe it or not, even though we don't water this area, we still get weeds growing through, and weeds will find any little seam. It's amazing, right?
Absolutely.
So, but it looks great. It's been here for a long time, and we're hoping that this will last another 15, 20 years out here.
Wow.
So
That's a long time to get through with this kind of sun.
yeah, it's great. And so the initial price of artificial turf is kind of high, right? But we tell them, but if you're going to have this for 20 plus years, you can, that cost is.
And it would make a great putting green.
Yes, and I've seen some really nice putting greens, on these things for the avid golfers and stuff like that. Now you're going to have the water, you don't have to worry about mowing it down really low or making sure the ball's moving at a steady pace. But yeah, so this is great.
Are there any drawbacks to artificial turf?
The only drawback, and like I said before, is just the cost. Now, I don't have current numbers, but I'm hearing it's quite expensive, But again, if you're going to have it for 20 plus years, you can then, your return of investment.
Absolutely.
It just takes time.
And I would assume there's different qualities.
Yes. So what you're seeing now, this was back in 2000 it was either 2007, 2008 when this was actually installed. Now there's a lot of different varieties of artificial turf, different textures, different looks, and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot to choose from now. Where back when we did it, there was like 3.
No, but
So
it just looks so nice because it gives you a large volume of green.
yes.
That is always nice in a garden. So it's a nice backdrop to your trees and your plants.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and a lot of customers have put artificial turf in, and maybe not as big as area as this, but in smaller areas, just so that way you have that curb appeal when people are driving up. They're like, oh, look at the green grass. And so, oh, it's artificial turf. Oh, even better, right? Drought tolerant. There's no water required. Stuff. Now in the summertime, one of the drawbacks is this gets hot. This gets really hot out here. So walking on this in bare feet, probably not.
Is it any hotter than DG or concrete?
Probably about the same. Honestly,
Okay.
it's probably about the same. But how much do we go barefoot? But I have a little bit of grass in my back.
That's surprising because it's actually plastic.
And it gets right now. It's not too bad. Of course, it was pretty cool this morning. But yesterday I was out here doing a tour, and it was in the low 90s, and it was fairly warm. So it's not bad.
Pretty cool right now.
Yeah. So as we kind of mosey on around this portion, I'm going to kind of talk to you about some of our trees. We have a sales structure over here, and a couple of the showcase plants that we have here in the garden that just do really well and have taken off in popularity. So when we first put a couple of these plants in, kind of unknowns, people weren't really planting them and stuff like that. They were available, and then now they're pretty much everywhere. So on to your right, so we have a couple shoestrings here, but you can see how close this shoestring now is to the building. So it's actually, and you can see the droppings on the roof and stuff like that, which is causing a lot of problems for us with our drainage system. That tree should have been planted farther out, So always read that tag. And then we have a few other trees, sycamores.
It probably works real well at 10 feet.
Yeah, they look great. So we have, but these sycamore trees, I love sycamore trees, but look how tall they got. I mean, these trees got massive quickly.
Well, they get massive.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if they realize that, but you can especially see with that specimen there how big it is and stuff like that. But then again, look at the roof line. So you're seeing all of the mess and stuff like that. So, it's like, I always point that out to people so that way, hey, it's really important. Read those tags, plant accordingly, and then you won't have issues 15 years down the road.
The sycamores live like 500 years?
They live for a long time if they don't have any bugs that get into them and eat them out from within. But yeah, and like I said, when we planted these trees, these were all 24-inch boxes. They're about 10 feet tall. So they've really done well over the last 15 or so years.
Now with this kind of a garden with the low water plants, do you have a problem with bugs on your tree or moss on any of your trees?
Not that I'm aware of, thankfully. And we really minimize the amount of pesticides. Anything that we use in the garden is very minimal. As a matter of fact, the only time that we would use that is if our gardeners say, hey, you have a diseased plant, most of the times we're removing that plant because it's diseased. You know, if it's a small plant, obviously if it was a tree, it would be a different story. But remove the plant, go into the soil, figure out what's going on, if there's an issue inside the soil, you know, and if there is an issue in the soil, we would then have them dig out, you know, all that soil and put brand new soil in there and plant another plant. So
It's kind of hard to do that
with the trees, right?
A nice tree.
Yeah, and we've had some luck. Now, we do have a tree over here that is, I think we're losing it. I don't know if it has some burrowing beetles get into it or what it's doing, but we're losing that tree, which is unfortunate. Sometimes these things happen, so we'll have our arborist come out and take a look to see what happened, and that way if we plant another tree in that location, he can then guide us to where, you know what, this is what happened, let's do X, Y, and Z.
And you really do have to be prudent about that, because that same bug can travel to another tree.
Yes, you know, and personally, at my house, I lost several trees due to those burrowing beetles, and I didn't catch it in time because, you know, the holes are so small and stuff. And then all of a sudden I noticed my plum tree it didn't leaf, you know, it had no blooms, what's going on and stuff like that. And then I pulled the bark away, and then you just see holes just all up and down the trunk.
See, my plums have done the same thing. Yeah.
So, and I love Santa Rosa plums. They're so good, right? So I plant trees, you know, fruit trees that I love to eat and stuff like that, the different fruits, like the different mandarins. I love all the different mandarins that are available. You know, everybody's like, oh, the cuties. I was like, well, that's a brand. You know, but there are more than just cuties out there, right? There's all different kinds. So, yeah.
And some of the nurseries around here carry the mandarin.
Yeah, and I've, through the Master Gardener program, one of our classes was all about citrus, which was amazing. So talked about all the different lemon trees and grapefruit trees and the orange trees, because, you know, we're so used to navel, right, for the orange. Well, there's all these different varieties that do well. So I went and planted a couple different varieties. I planted 3 different varieties of mandarins, so that way I have them so where I'll get mandarins in the beginning of spring and in the summer and in the fall, so which is great. So I have mandarins, you know, that whole time. So.
Do you have a preference on your mandarins?
I knew I should have written down the ones I have, and I don't have them.
Are they all about the same sweetness?
Yeah, they're pretty much the same sweetness. I do have one. It's like a cutie, right? It's that same type of a mandarin, which is amazing, but they're 3 times better than anything you can buy in the store because they're so sweet and stuff like that. I do have another one that isn't seedless, so there's seeds in them, but it has more tart to it. It's actually pretty good. You know, I like it, and it has more of a ruffled skin. And then there's another one that's a little bit smaller. It's even sweeter than the cutie one. So
I always found the homegrown fruits, including citrus, their flavor is so much more intense.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference of having homegrown and going to the market.
Yep. Yeah. Especially with our oranges. You know, I have the Valencia and I have the navel. You know, the navels have thicker skin, the Valencias, but we let our fruit mature on the tree, right? We're not picking them, you know, early and stuff like that. So when I go out there, they're about softball size. You know, they're amazing. So I love it. It takes forever, you know, and they weren't kidding when we took the class, and they said it takes about 7 years, you know, for your citrus trees to really start producing heavy and stuff like that. And it took about 7 years. So.
I'd be happy if they just start producing.
Right. So, and what you're going to see as you go through our garden, you're going to see a lot of repeat, right? So we use a lot of the same plants over and over again, just in different areas. So over here up to your left, we have a lot of our grasses. So we wanted to showcase some different grasses that you can use. These are decorative grasses. Oh, by the way, I don't think I talked about this, but we have at the front of each of our entrances to our garden, this is our self-guided walking tour guide. So you can pick this up at the sign, so that way when you come out here to the garden, this has a list of all of our plants that are out here. Also shows you how to read the tags. Each one of our plants have a tag on there that shows you the common name and also the botanical name. Also gives you a map of everything, so that way you can see if, like, oh, I'm very interested in this certain plant. Well, I'm going to go straight to it, like the dwarf tea tree. I'll show you that real quick.
I really liked how they laid this out. It's a good example of how you can do your own layout at home. but they have it broken down by shrubs, hardscape, and trees.
Yeah.
I found that really helpful when I wanted to go back and look up a couple of the names of the plants.
Thank you. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this, but we even put how to read our tags, because our tags, you know, we have some icon. We use a lot of icons and stuff like that. So if you see an icon on a tag that shows like a butterfly, or it shows like a hummingbird and stuff like that, it just means it's a plant that attracts pollinators. So, and a lot of us gardeners we're looking for that, right? We're looking. Well, I want to bring the pollinators in. Give me a plant that blooms, and that will bring all these.
I really like how you repeat plants. In design, they show you to repeat plants, and for landscape design. And when you do multiples like you have done here, it just really showcases.
Yeah, and that was one thing I learned in the Master Gardener program, right? Do it in odd numbers, right? 3, 5, 7.
Absolutely.
So, and so when we did this, we asked the architect, you know, of course he knew, but just to make sure that when we do mass plantings that it's in an odd number, you know, 3, 5, 7, and so that way it'll look really good when these come up and stuff like that. Now these, when we planted these grasses, something to make sure, reading the tag, that it doesn't propagate, the seeds don't go into the ground right and take off and you get new plants. That's important, because there are grasses out there that they'll look like this, right? And then those seeds will then turn into new grass, right? When it hits the ground. So, because you don't want a whole garden full of this grass,
Well,
right?
they seem to reproduce in areas you don't want them.
Always. So we looked, we have a couple different grasses here, and I'm going to look up their names, but they're the molly, and then we also have, I'm looking at this other one real quick. So we have the peak molly, and we have deer grass. So the deer grass is right here in front, where it has these little pretty blooms, and then the molly, you can see, has the red tint to it, the flower. So it's really pretty. So we have, you know, just some difference. What's nice about these, what I like is when it's windy out here, you get a lot of movement in the garden, and it's really pretty, you know. So also you can see that we have different rocks. We also put boulders in, just as accent pieces and stuff like that. And this is a different type of a rock that we have used as a mulch. So you can see the different sizes, right? So we have the large boulders here, and then we have the smaller size. We don't go any smaller than this. I know there's pea size that you see a lot of people use in their front yards and stuff like that. But this is the smallest size rock that we use here. And a lot of our borders, you can see that we use concrete edging, right? So a little bit more expensive, right? But this is going to last for 20 plus years. We're not going to have to worry about replacing these edging and stuff. And I'll show you an example of when we didn't use concrete, when we used just those boards and stuff like that, what it looks like after about 10 years. So, so spend a little bit more now and you don't have to deal with it, or spend less now and then 5 to 10 years later you have to replace it.
Well, there are some edging that looks like concrete or brick. There's different things that you can put in if you don't want to actually have concrete mix to put in.
Yeah, there's a lot of options out there. So we decided to go with the concrete. You can see this is original, this concrete that lines this road. So it's been here since probably this building was built back in 1997, 98. So it's been here a long time. So we also added, to give this more rigidity in it, we actually, even though it's only about 6 inches, we actually added rebar, just to give it some more strength so it's not cracking and stuff like that. So we'll continue down. We do have some plants that are blooming down here.
You know, this garden looks almost the same to me as it did in the spring. I see a few changes, but it still has the feeling that it did in the spring.
Yeah, and it's what amazes me is that in the summertime, a lot of these plants don't bloom, right? We do have a couple, like that yellow bell over here, with coral fountains and stuff like that. We had some rain just recently, and it's amazing how quickly these plants come back up, you know, and start blooming again. They think, oh, it's spring, let's go, right? So we've had some of that, kind of like our rosemary over here. It's really this section is really taken off. a lot of flowers and stuff. And less than about 2 weeks ago, there were no flowers on here. So it's
that's
how quick,
interesting. Yeah.
how quick with a little bit of rain, boom, it just starts flowering. Yeah, it looks amazing.
Does the trailing rosemary bloom more than once a year?
My understanding it does. Let me double check to see if I have an official on this rosemary.
Is it fall and spring?
Let me see if I have it on the tag. I know it. So we're seeing it now in the fall, and I know it does it again in the spring.
Yeah.
So, but let me double check. I'll have to double check on that to see.
That's
now-
fine. I just remember
Yeah,
it.
I think it's twice a year.
Yeah.
Now, we made some changes in this bed, right? I don't know if you, last time you were here, I think we already had it done, but I'm not sure. At one time, this bed with all of our plants in here actually had DG in it. Now, we were told by a contractor that, hey, you should use DG. It helps with weed control and stuff like that, and it's another form of mulch. What we found out was that over time, this DG compacts down almost to like concrete, right? So our plants were struggling. They couldn't grow, because the DG was surrounding them. So what we did,
So the water wasn't percolating down.
so it wasn't allowing the root systems especially for this rosemary that spreads, to spread, right? It was keeping them very small, so the plants were staying small, and we couldn't figure it out. So we contacted another landscape company, and they said what you should do is around each plant, go out 3 to 4 feet, dig out that DG, right? Put in more new organic material like compost and stuff like that, and then cover it with mulch. Originally, we were going to have the DG completely removed, and then when we saw the estimate after they pulled me off the ground, we said, no, we need to come up with a different solution to that. But that's what we did, and these plants last year were struggling because they just couldn't grow in that DG, and now they've actually come back to life, and we're really happy with the growth this year. So,
Well, I think some of us confuse when somebody tells us that something will work and grow just fine. Well, there's a lot of things that grow in the wild or where you don't want to, and it looks like they grow just fine, but with a little bit of help for your landscape, it makes a big difference.
exactly, it does. And we tell customers also, we do not use weed fabric here, just because we've tried to use that in the past. I know some people have had good experiences with weed fabric. We have not had good experiences with that. As probably everybody knows, you remove everything, put the weed fabric down, then you plant your plants and put all the stuff on top of it, right? What ends up happening here is that as the wind blows and the birds carry seeds and stuff like that, the weeds grow on top of the weed fabric. The roots go down into the weed fabric, so now when you're trying to pull stuff up, you're pulling the weed fabric up with it.
Exactly what I
Yeah. So it's a learning experience, right? You kind of go, okay. So we don't use that here, and that question comes up all the time.
And then you had a big mess.
Yes, and it's very because it's overlapping. You got all this stuff on top of it. It's the labor to install it. It's expensive.